we'll bring up our speaker, Norah from Grid Alternatives.
All right, thanks, Keith. Hi, everyone. My name is Norah Kyassa. I'm the Clean Mobility Outreach Coordinator with Grid Alternatives, and I'm going to talk to you guys a little today about the Communities in Charge program. So as the Outreach Coordinator, my job is to raise awareness and engagement with the program. A little bit about Grid. We are a nonprofit focused on the renewable energy transition, specifically in priority populations. So a lot of our outreach focuses on disadvantaged, low income, and tribal populations, both statewide and nationwide as well. This is because we believe that a successful transition to clean energy must include everyone. And I realized you guys are probably extremely well versed on the benefits of EVs and EV charging stations, so I'll go ahead and skip this slide. So a little bit about Communities in Charge. So it is a $350 million incentive program funded by the California Energy Commission. It's administered by CalSTART, which is another nonprofit, and we serve as the equity and outreach partner. This is again because at Grid we focus outreach specifically with disadvantaged and low-income populations. So the financial incentive program provides incentives for level 2 EV chargers. This is because level 2 EV chargers are great for destination charging, and this program focuses on distributing these chargers in commercial and multifamily property sites. The rebate has a minimum of 4 connectors that must be installed, up to a maximum of 20 connectors. And like I mentioned, we prioritize equity with the program through outreach to community connections. So there are 8 different types of community connections, which I'll explain a little bit about in the next slide. But the reason for this is that 50% of the program's funding must be allocated to disadvantaged and low-income communities. At Grid, the way that we support these communities specifically is we provide technical assistance and application support at no cost. So going into the incentive amounts, so the base incentive is $3,500 per connector, or up to 75% of eligible project costs. This is depending on whichever is less. If the site is for multifamily housing, they would get an additional $3,500, and if it's a project site for a tribal government, a tribal entity, or NGO serving a tribal community, that would be an additional $3,500. So a maximum rebate scenario would look like if someone was installing a charger at a multifamily housing site on tribal lands, they could receive up to $10,500 for that specific charger. So these are the 8 different types of community connections, and like I mentioned, they were specifically chosen based on their ability to be located in areas where communities live and gather. So these vary from multifamily housing, to tribes, to healthcare, to schools in charge, congregations, nonprofits, local governments, workplaces in charge, et cetera, et cetera. So preparing an incentive application for Communities in Charge first depends on getting to know the site's key partners. So that would include the utility. So in San Diego, that'd be SDG&E. The contractor who's going to have to do the site assessment as well as install the chargers. It must be an EVSC certified contractor in order to install the chargers. Another potential key partner could be Grid. As I mentioned, we do provide that free technical and application assistance. The next step is getting to know your site. This is where the site assessment occurs. So the EVSC contractor will go onto the site, will determine if the site has the electrical capacity to install the chargers, and then from there you can determine what type of chargers that you want. So this third one right here was when we were also partnering on the Cali VIP program. We're no longer a partner on that program, but that is still a program of interest in the San Diego region. But from there, once you've determined what type of charging station you would want, you would have to assess your budget. So a lot of the time, we see a lot of costs come up with the electrical upgrades that are necessary for installing the chargers. So that's always something that we forewarn potential applicants to kind of prepare for, just so that they can get an assessment and understand if they might need to decrease the level of chargers that they want on their property site. And then finally, the last step would be to prepare your applications and your documents. We always encourage applicants to prepare their documents as early as possible. That way that when the application window opens, they're ready to submit. This is because this is a program that is awarded on a tiering system. So those projects that are shovel ready will be awarded the money first. Then after will be tiers 2 and tiers 3. So I know that this might sound like a little bit of a unique program for a association like the Electric Vehicle Association, but the reason that I wanted to present this information here today is if there are any commercial or multifamily housing property site owners, but also that we do encourage, you guys are all electric vehicle drivers, which is awesome. So you guys understand that there is an incredible gap with EV charging infrastructure, especially in the San Diego region. And so we don't want people to face charging anxiety. So we encourage you guys to be advocates for this program if you, for example, want to see charging in your workplace or at your congregation. You guys are more than welcome to provide us the information of that property, and we can reach out to them on your behalf and let them know about the program. We can also provide learning sessions, be featured in newsletters, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, if you guys have any information about the program or would like technical assistance or application support for a potential site, you can contact us at our email here. I'll also provide anyone who needs one my business card if you'd like to contact me personally. But yeah, that concludes my presentation. Thank you guys for listening.
All right, I have a question already.
Yes, of course.
So I know your Grid Alternatives focuses on disadvantaged communities, or if I don't have the words right, you can correct me. So how is underserved, thank you, for businesses, what's the matrix that businesses fall? Do they have to be within certain zip codes or?
Right, that's a great question. So we determine if a property is disadvantaged or low income based on information provided to us by the Cal Enviro screening tool. So you would put in your zip code and then that would pop up of whether that property is in a disadvantaged or low income community. And then there's also a point system with the program. So if they are in a disadvantaged or low income community, they would get a little bit more points that way since it is a program focused on equity, but any commercial or multifamily housing site is eligible to apply.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's the same criteria for any of your 8?
Correct, yeah, for any community connections. Anyone is eligible to apply. The funding is the same all around. But again, if it's multifamily housing, affordable multifamily housing, or for a tribal property, then they would get an additional $3,500. The incentive can also be stacked with the federal tax credit, the IRA tax credit. So that's another way to kind of offset the costs that the incentive itself might not cover.
And then what phase are you in the program of assigning grants or shovel ready? Are you like maybe halfway committed to the funds, or are you in the very beginning of the program?
That's a great question. So the last funding wave closed on December 22nd. So they're in the process of awarding those applicants those funds right now. We're anticipating a new funding wave sometime this year. We don't actually distribute the grants. Like I mentioned, we just provide the technical assistance and application support so that you guys have the best chance of getting those monies. But yeah, usually I would say it takes about 45 days after the submission of the application for awardees to get notified if they received an award, and then from there they go forth with their project.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
You talked about this 3,500 and multiples thereof paying for eligible aspects of the entire soup to nuts
Correct. Yes.
install, whether it's trenching, it's distribution panel upgrade, whether it's running cable out to a particular area of a parking area or structure, and there's the charging equipment itself.
Correct.
What does this funding cover in all of that? Or maybe if the list is shorter as to what it doesn't cover, maybe you can describe it that way.
Right, really great question. So the program covers any costs related to the implementation and the installation of the project. So like you mentioned, things like stripping, trenching, electric upgrades, any transformers, those are things that the program would cover. It wouldn't cover things that aren't necessarily related to the installation of an EVSC on a property that the property owner might have to do. So for example, if there's kind of anything related to making the property ADA compliant with parking, the program wouldn't necessarily cover those funds since it's not completely related to installing the EVSC on site. Yeah.
And I was just going to throw it out there that I have all this literature also in Spanish.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, so if you need it in Spanish, it's available. Reach out to myself or Nora.
Yes.
Yeah. Go, Larry.
So you mentioned that the contractor had to be something certified. What was that title again?
EVITP certified.
EVI?
EVITP certified. So, yes, if you type it into Google EVITP certified contractors, there's a website where you can type in your zip code, and then the number of EVITP certified contractors in your area will pop up, and from there you can reach out to one for the installation of the project. This is because with level 2 EVSCs, there's a certain certification necessary to install them as opposed to.
Is that link included in your presentation?
It's not, but I'd be more than happy to
Yeah,
email
I
you
think
the
it would be
link or
helpful, because
provide
sometimes
it
when
to
you search for something, you can't find it.
Right, yeah, exactly.
So there's a list of those contractors who are
Correct.
certified.
Correct. Nationwide, yeah.
Nationwide, but.
Nationwide.
How about locally? Did you search how many are locally available in San Diego?
Yeah, so the really great thing about that tool, and again, I'll share the link with Keith to share it with everyone else, is that you can type in your zip code into the search bar and it will provide you with a list of all EVITP certified contractors within your area. So if you would need an EVITP certified contractor in San Diego, you would type in your zip code and then all the nearest EVITP certified
What
contractors.
if you just say San Diego City? Will
Yeah,
pop
it
up?
would still pop up as well, but you wouldn't get, the nearest to you. So we usually recommend putting in your zip code.
So, have you done a search roughly how many such contractors are available in San Diego County?
That's a really good question. So we have done a search. I can't give you a number off the top of my head. I can assure you though that San
It's
Diego.
your assignment. You know.
Yeah, I can assure you that San Diego does have plenty. So a lot of the time in more rural areas, or when we get closer to tribal areas in San Diego, EVITP certified contractors might be further out. But for the city of San Diego, there are a pretty decent amount of EVITP certified contractors to
I
choose
know
from.
some contractors only want to do work with businesses. They don't want to work with like residential or HOAs.
Oh, right.
So
Developers.
how do
yeah.
we, do they have any information where they work with HOAs? For.
Yeah,
Is that
so-
on that website, do you think? Is
Yeah,
that-
I'm assuming that they would. I would recommend, so
I
because
wouldn't
this is
assume though.
right, but because this program is specifically catered to commercial and multifamily property
Okay.
sites, I'm kind of at ease to say, yes, they are 100% on board to install these chargers. That's because we just don't work with residential properties.
Okay,
But
I have a
yeah,
few
go
more
ahead.
questions, and so you said this application window was when? February already, or it's already passed, or?
So the last funding wave closed on December 22nd.
December
So
22nd.
yeah, we're anticipating a new funding wave coming up. We just haven't gotten word from CalSTART yet on when that will be. But when we get near to hearing information on that, I'll go ahead and pass it along to Keith.
So in the December one, were you guys able to help any applicants move forward with an application?
Yes, we were. So we were able to help about 15 different site types submit an application through the
And
program.
could we get information on those kind of sites that were applied? So for
Yeah.
reference, then we can say, hey, look, here's an example similar to yours.
Yeah.
We'll talk to them.
Yeah.
Is that possible to get that information later?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'll have to check in with my team to see what's publicly available and what's not. But once I do get word on that, again, I'll go ahead and pass it off to you
And
guys.
shovel ready, okay, so they have to put everything organized,
Correct, yes.
what they're gonna do.
Mhm.
There can't be some question marks left over, they have to have it all organized and ready to submit.
Right, so there's obviously a lot of moving parts to installing an EVSC on a property. So with the application, there are also different forms that you must submit. But they're, honestly, in my opinion, with working with sites, they're pretty easy to get. I think what's most difficult, again, is the utility coordination and as well as getting the permitting for the site
Oh,
from
you have
the
to have
city.
the permitting ahead of time?
Correct, you have to have a building permit, and you also
Oh,
need,
building.
to be shovel-ready, you would need a final site verification form. So you would need the contractor to come out on the property and perform that site assessment and draw out a sketch of what the EVSCs will actually look like on site. And again, to do that, you would kind of, at some point, need coordination with the utility, and going through that. So there could be a lot of, bottlenecking at that point, so.
So, okay, so that's on the the graph of how you get this all approved, you have to highlight the troubles or the challenging or the hoops you have to jump over,
Right.
including working with utilities. And
Yeah.
getting that.
Exactly.
Higher hurdles.
Yeah, and thank you for mentioning that. You know, we try to keep the presentation as brief as possible, but on the Communities in Charge website, they have a resource library, and on that resource library, they provide the information for what a shovel-ready project needs. It's a really simple graphic to follow. You can just check mark it.
Was that website on your presentation?
The communities
The last
in
one.
charge.
Yes, the
that's-
communitiesinCharge.org
that's
website,
That's
correct,
the
yes.
website, okay. And it's on that website you're
It's
talking about?
on that website, and there's
I
a,
think
yeah.
it would be very helpful if they add examples of projects that have been done to that website,
Success stories.
success stories, and it's similar, so people who have similar type facilities
Right.
would be able to hone in on those and say, hey, we can do it too.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, really interesting feature of the website is that they provide a map of the previous funding waves. So when you look at the map, you can actually zoom in and see the location of a project. It's not necessarily kind of a full narrative or a full story like you were asking for. At Grid, we're currently trying to develop a narrative to submit in newsletters, again, to encourage people that, you know, this project was completed successfully, this is what you can do as well. But yeah, if you do want to check out data on projects that have been implemented successfully,
Okay,
there's a
one or
map for
two more
that.
questions now. Lisa.
No, you're fine. I
Okay,
love
You're
them.
a legal person,
Do you,
so.
so you're helping these applications. So, do you have any examples in Chula Vista? Or that, you need to shake the mouse. Do you have any examples in the city of Chula Vista?
So we don't have any examples in the city of Chula Vista, and the reason for that is that during the last funding wave, there was an issue with SDG&E. They had a roadblock with getting transformers out there, but also the city of Chula Vista partnered with a different organization that could provide 100% of the cost. So this rebate is pretty minimal as the base incentive. So sometimes the sites that we work with, because we work with disadvantaged and low income sites, they might not have that upfront capital to cover what the rebate doesn't. So I just spoke with the city of Chula Vista actually last week to see if there's any more sites that might be interested in applying to the program. So we're trying to keep that in mind, but I know that the city of Chula Vista is working with a different rebate program.
And another source.
And how about National City, where I'm from?
National City, no, unfortunately not. But that is an area of priority to us because there
Okay.
are a lot of pockets of interest there for us.
So I definitely would be interested in seeing what projects have been successful and some concrete examples and how they laid out their program so that would
Yeah.
be successful versus, I don't know, if ones who weren't successful, why they weren't successful.
Right,
That would
yeah.
be-
Yeah, I can provide Keith with our data from Funding Wave 1 because I believe that's a little bit beyond my time, but I think that we successfully installed 5 EV charging projects during that time. Yeah, hopefully.
I don't know, was I speaking loud enough for the other people to hear? Maybe I needed a microphone, I don't know. Okay.
Yeah, we're on Zoom. You don't have our Zoom meeting up on your screen, but we're still watching Norah. Tom has a question from Zoom, if you can hear okay.
Yeah,
You can hear.
Yeah, hi Tom.
Yeah, hi Nora, and yeah, Larry, take a breath, go get another slice. Just kidding, Larry, I love you. Hey, Nora, thank you so much for this presentation. I'm familiar with Grid Alternatives. I'm working with a number of other organizations, including some nonprofits, but my favorite nonprofit these days is the Electric Vehicle Learning Center. We're going to be exhibiting at the Festival of Science and Engineering in Chula Vista. I think it's the Saturday, the 2nd of March. I was just wondering if Grid Alternatives will be in attendance at that event. And if so, I'd like to maybe talk about some of these programs in person.
Yeah, thank you for plugging that. I am not familiar with that event, but we always do try and go to as many outreach events as possible. So I'll actually connect with the San Diego Grid team and see if that's on their radar. And yeah, we'll definitely try our best to show up.
Yeah, thank you for that. And so, yeah, I do a lot of stuff with the Electric Vehicle Learning Center in San Marcos. And we would love to get involved with Grid Alternatives and some of their educational programs as well. So thank you so much for showing up. I hope you're not discouraged by the size of the crowd.
Not at all, no.
And since this is being recorded, a lot of us will definitely be sharing this information. It's really important information, so thanks again.
Yeah, of course, and not discouraged by the crowd at all. I understand it's Valentine's Day, so I don't blame anyone for not being able to show up. And I also have flyers here as well, so I'll leave a couple with Keith for the next meeting if anyone wants to grab one from the Zoom call if you weren't able to attend in person.
Thanks.
Yeah, of course.
You were mentioning about the infrastructure. Is it really necessary to upgrade SDG&E infrastructure? Because I know some charging systems are set so that they can track when power is available and not necessarily need to overtax the grid. That we went to a tour of some of the facilities at UCSD as part of the EVA national meeting, and they were showing where they've got a system which is controlled and can track when power is available. So for example, if the system is set up to only provide charging between midnight and 6 a.m. when it's the cheapest and the
Right.
most available power, there wouldn't necessarily need to be any upgrade to SDG&E's grid.
Right, yeah. That's a good question and a great point. I would say, you know, it really depends on kind of the infrastructure of the building. So again, like I mentioned, a lot of the time we work within priority populations that can't afford a tool like that UCSD might be able to. And also a multifamily housing property site that was kind of built a while back might not have that infrastructure built in to just, you know, hold the load of something like a level 2 EVSE. I know that with the program, I believe that it must provide an output of 77.2 kilowatts, and we are working for kind of installing chargers that have a lower burden on the electric panel, but yeah, I would say it just really depends on kind of the building type, when it was built, if the building type has the tools to determine what the electrical capacity is, and kind of what the utility determines is the best fit for the
Because
charger.
what I'm thinking is that if you had an empty lot and you want to build something on there, you
Right.
can get a power pole put in there in 48 hours
Right.
and you'd have power. And there's no reason why you couldn't use that to be the power point for 4 to 20 chargers if you were controlling what the output was delivered to each car.
Yeah.
Right,
I think UCSD is getting the gold-plated versions of all that.
right.
But we did have a presentation months back on a company that was making a charge controller that would essentially distribute and control how much is going to each car based upon what was available.
Mhm.
I'd have to go back and remember what that
Yeah,
company
but
was.
you have to consider who is going, in this kind of program, who is going to advise that family dwelling to pick this smart charger over
Right.
this cheaper standard charger, and whether that's gonna be viable for them.
Well, that may be something for you, because
Yeah.
if you could use a smarter charge controller and not need an upgrade to SDG&E's
Exactly,
infrastructure,
right.
the net cost per station will be way down compared to the SDG&E overhead.
Right, and so we're always in talks with CalSTART about the program design and its limitations, and so that is something that has come up before. You know, smarter chargers are decreasing the kilowatts necessary for the eligibility requirements. Also, what types of chargers can be put onto the eligible technology list on CalSTART's webpage. So yeah, to kind of answer that question, we are always in talks with CalSTART on the program design to kind of better fit what everyone needs. Yeah.
I thought of another question. Okay.
Okay.
So you mentioned there were, you have 15 applications last year,
Last
was
week.
that right?
About, yes,
About
I
15.
believe.
And of those 15, how many different contractors were involved? Like, was there 1 or 2 that did all 15? Or was there 15 separate contractors?
Right, so the projects were spread out statewide, so
You're doing statewide, not just San Diego?
correct. We're doing statewide. So
Oh.
this is a statewide program So our team is pretty small, so we try to cover as much as the state as possible. So I'm from the Inland Empire, so I will
Oh.
take part of the southern region of California, so that's considered Los Angeles, San Diego. That's about it actually for the southern region, as well as the eastern region, which is the Inland Empire and the Central Valley, and I'll try to conduct as much outreach as possible there. I also want to note, when I mentioned successfully applied, that means that they just submitted the application, which is a huge feat in itself. We haven't gotten word yet on whether or not they've actually been awarded. That's still happening right now. Yeah.
It's all about the charging, right?
Yeah.
But not to plug our local utility, but SDG&E's Power Your Drive for fleets is still open through the end of this year, where they do a similar assessment and simple one-page application up front. They cover 80% of the project, but they have equipment you must use. Right. So there's other programs out there.
It's not booked up already with the funding?
They say it was supposed to be funded through next summer, 2025, but they're saying they're cutting it off the end of this year.
Because the funding is being used?
Well, no, they're successfully taking applications and filling them, and
Okay.
Oh, okay.
yeah.
That's good to hear. Yeah, there are plenty of rebates out there. So we always say that if this program might not be a good fit for your EV charging needs, the County of San Diego, City of San Diego, they're really, really great with EV rebates and EVSC rebates. I also have flyers for another program that we have. That's the Clean Cars for All program, where eligible applicants can receive up to $12,000 for trading in an old gas-powered car. So yeah, the City of San Diego has been really, really great with kind of EVs and EVSC upgrades. Still a lot of work to be done, but you guys are kind of the leader right now in the state.
Yeah. All right. I want to say
Yeah.
thank you. We can have some more questions afterwards. We want to
Of course.
wear you out. So thank you.